Alright, welcome back to Bit Heroes Explained. Today we're going to talk about familiars and fusions. It's one of my favorite aspects of the game. It's basically a way that you can make your foes join your team and fight for you, and there's different ways to upgrade them, and so we're going to take a look at that today. You can of course access your familiars by clicking on the user interface in the bottom right of the screen, or you can come over here into the northeast corner of the map and you can click on this guy and take a look at your stables. But let's just start off here talking about familiars. So familiars are the guys that you can fight with, or fight against and fight with. These are the ones that you can persuade. When you upgrade a familiar, it becomes a fusion, and it gets a bonus to its abilities. It gets an attack bonus, and it also gets more stats. So we talked about that one right now. So, okay. Fusions, like I said, you can upgrade these guys in various ways. Fusions is one of them. And the first thing you'll see here is you get these recipes. These are schematics. The schematics drop in the area where you find the fusions that go into the schematics. And these are affected by item find. So the more item find that you have, the higher chance you do have of actually getting the schematic. But you have to farm them in the areas where those fusions reside. And just like everything in the game, there's different qualities. So you have mythic, you've got legendary, epic, and so on. And the way the stats work, if we go back to the previous page, a common familiar, not a fusion, but a common familiar will have 60% of your total stats. The distribution is going to be different depending on what the familiar is, but it'll have 60% of your total stats. Rare will have 70, epic will be 80, legendary will be 90, and mythic is a little bit special. All the mythics will have 100% total stats, and I'll talk about that in a second. If we talk about fusion, so now you have upgraded your familiar to a fusion, you get a 5% bonus. So it'll go 65, 75, 85, 95, and you would think that a mythic fusion would be 105, but it's actually 100. Because there are no mythic familiars that you can catch, there are only mythic fusions that you can make. So there's no 100% total stats mythic familiar, therefore there's no 5% upgrade to that. Little bit frustrating. I was kind of bummed out when I found out about that, because the mythic familiars and fusions, they're so difficult to get and they're so involved to get that you'd really want to get that reward of that extra 5% total stats. But maybe that's a way that they kind of curb end game power and reduce power creep a little bit. But until that changes, that's what it is. So a mythic fusion will have 100% of your player stats. Now if you want to increase that further, you can go and look into your stable. So clicking on this guy was giving me the stable. Of course you can go through here and click on stable just through your user interface here, and you see these little blue hash marks down here. So you can upgrade these guys 5 times. So if you have a spare of the same familiar or fusion, you can put them in the stable and you can give a 2% total stat bonus. So each one's 2%, 5 times that, so you can possibly have a 10% bonus. And going back on the numbers I just gave you, if you upgrade a rare like this guy 5 times, he will have the equivalent total stats as a 0 upgrade of the next level. So I've upgraded this guy 5 times. This is one of the best early tanks that you can get. So for me, it was worth upgrading him a handful of times and make him just that much stronger and get that 10% total stats for him. I would say don't worry about stables until you get to around the level 100 or so, or maybe when you slow down, because when you are low level you have low stats, and 2% of nothing is nothing. So there's not any point in really worrying about and spending the time to go and collect familiars to get that, when you could just be progressing the game and getting more levels and getting more experience and more skill points that way. So only wait and look into this when you start to get stuck. What you do is you can click board, you can see, okay, let's see where I have duplicates. So I've got a bunch of these Brumo trees for whatever reason. He's already stabled up, so he's good to go. Let's show you for example. If I want to take them out, I can just take them out. Releasing these guys is not losing them in any way, I can of course take them all the way out, or I can put them right back in. No big deal. Right through there. So, put him into my stable, yes. No, I don't use this guy, but he's a good example, and I guess I kind of camped out on wherever he lives, and I ended up catching a bunch of him. You always want to catch familiars and fusions, because in the future you might actually need them, maybe if they add something new in the game, so that means you won't have to go back, and they only cost gold to catch if you're just going for the chance. Most players will suggest keeping 1,600 gems on your character at all time in case a special legendary pops up that you end up wanting. You can get them with gems, because the chance of them persuading is so low. If you want them, you really need to be willing to throw gems at it if you have it. And just by playing the game, you can get enough gems just from running around and doing typical things if you are a free-to-play player. So we talked about familiars, we talked about fusions, we talked about the stable. That pretty much wraps it up. There are some familiars that are specific to world boss, to dungeons, to raids. This one is a good example of a familiar that is specific to invasion. So they have a holiday-themed one, a holiday-themed invasion. You've got a holiday-themed guy right here that is fairly easy to get, and this gives you some progression for your character. If you have not come into contact with the familiar or the fusion, they'll show up as this question mark. If you have come in contact with them, or if you do have the recipe, you will see them in the silhouette form. But that pretty much wraps it up. Familiars and fusions is a pretty cool aspect of the game. It's one of my favorite parts, and that's pretty much all you need to know as far as in-game content. If you are trying to find out where to get certain familiars, you can always go into the world chat and ask, or if you want to kind of find it on your own. The wiki is a great resource, so I'm going to try to pull that over here into the frame, and here we go. So, go into Google, type in Bit Heroes, familiars and fusions, and this will rehash all the information that I talked about, and it will show you all the different attacks. So right down here through the tabs, you got familiars, you got fusions, you got the locations where you can find them. So again, familiar is one of the enemies that you fight and you can capture, and again, it shows the total stat distribution right down here. Let's see, somewhere. Here we go. So just to kind of re-go over that one more time, familiars have 60, if they're common, 60% of your total stats, 70, 80, 90 for legendaries, and if you make a fusion, you get a 5% bonus on top of that. Stabling, of course, gives you 2% on top of that, and you can take a look through. This shows you where you find each one, so this would be Zone 1, Dungeon 1. This shows the attacks that he has, and so on. It also shows the stat distribution. So I said common familiars will have 60%. They will have 60% of player stats, and then here the distribution. If you add these numbers up, surprise, it'll come up to 60, and you can see which attacks. So these are the familiars, and again, it shows the locations in there, and this has, I believe, everything in the game right now. This should be up to date. If you want to look at fusions, you click on this tab over here, and you can see your fusions. When you upgrade these guys, they will have a little bonus for being upgraded. So you'll see that through here. You have a bonus for getting upgraded on top of the 5% increase to stats, and you can see which ones make this guy, and you can click on those and find out where to find them. And you can go all the way up. Let's see. Some of the more interesting ones, such as this guy. He is kind of outdated. He is arguably very, very weak for the amount of effort that goes into him, which is unfortunate. Hopefully he'll see a buff in the future, but this kind of shows you how, if you want to make this guy, you can imagine if you want to make this top tier guy, you have to make Wacom and some other guys, and you can see how involved this process gets. So if you want to make Wacom, you have to make these guys, and so on. I might do a video on specific familiars in the future talking about which ones are more popular, depending on what content comes up after this reset. Hopefully we'll be able to go to Expedition and show some of that content there as well. But that pretty much does it. The wiki is always going to be pretty helpful for you. And yeah, I can't think of anything else. That'll do it. For popular familiars, yeah, maybe that'll be a separate video. I do like the shramps that I've shown off a couple times. Very easy for early players to get this guy. Shramps, Nope, don't want that. But Shramps, pretty easy to get him, and he has a nice block chance bonus. He's easy to stable if you do want to increase his stats. Early on healer to get is Borland. I'll let you guys practice on the wiki and look up these guys. Easy to fuse, easy to get, and they've got some pretty good skills. Let's see if I can show their skills. Actually, let's do it through fusion. Make this long video longer. Okay, Shramp. So pretty easy to get the fusion, the schematic off him. You get Gramps, you get Shrump, and you get this guy, and these are his attacks. He's got a good amount of health, and he's got a good amount of block. He's probably the best earliest tank that you can get. And his power is low, so he's not doing a ton of damage. He's not doing a ton of healing, but it is there, and it's definitely more than nothing. Borland's easy to get. You get Merlan, you get Bob, and you can fuse them together, and you get this guy. High damage, high speed, low stamina. He's kind of glassy. He's got this extra bonus, and damage bonus also applies to healing. So he can do damage, he can heal, he can support you. He's definitely worth having. So he's also old and wise, and he's also the master of all things slime. So very strong suggestion early on. Alright, as always, appreciate you watching the video. Look forward to seeing you in the next one.